Welcome to Celebrity Interviews with Paul. Today, I am honored to have with me Sir Marcus Robinson. Marcus is, as I, a Knight of Sufferlandria, as we proudly bear our Sufferfest swag and our gear. Marcus is also the founder of the Ride for Racial Justice, which we are going to talk about today. So, welcome to Celebrity Interviews with Paul.
Hey, thanks, man. This is great. I kind of like this visual thing here that get to reach out and talk to people from all over the world. I love it. Probably never would have done this with the pandemic. So this is great. Yep. And thank you so much.
There are gifts in the midst of the misery. So absolutely.
That's all right. Well, that's all right.
How's life in the pandemic for you? How's that treating you?
You know, we could probably spend hours and hours trying to dissect that, but for me, it's been, right now, I'm tired, you know?
Yeah.
I'm tired of the process, but I know it's needed to keep us all safe. I've probably learned a few new skills. One of them is this one right here, which is how we're doing all of our work from home, you know, at the office. But the pandemic is tough, I think, especially on families that have older parents. When this first started, you know, my sister's, you know, texting me and she says, make sure you mask up when you go visit mom. And mom just turned 89. And, you know, we're masked up, we're gloved up. And even when we go to visit her, we make sure she has her mask on, you know, and it hurts because I have to drop the groceries off on the porch, you know, and now I'm trying to discover on how to give her certain things so she can kind of pull them into the house. You know, it's difficult, but, you know, we're getting through it. She's been blessed that nothing has happened with her, you know, as much as we've been visiting with her since this all began. But it's really different looking at people and watching how they interact with folks has been a challenge. How we interact with people now is a challenge.
Sure.
And,
I step back a whole lot more often than I used to.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And here's what I probably shouldn't say, but I'm gonna say it anyway. Okay. and I learned this from some of the nurses. They said, you know, I said, you know, my mask, and she says, oh, I know what's wrong. You have bad breath. I'm like, what? And so she tells me the secret. She says, all the doctors, you know, when they've got their mask on prior to the pandemic, y'all put like a mint in their mouth because you're constantly breathing, you know, rebreathing everything.
Sure.
So now when I'm out talking, I pop a mint in my mouth and I got my mask on and I feel like I have fresh breath.
There you go. You may not, but at least it feels good.
May not. It feels good. Yeah.
So how did you start cycling? How did you come to ride a bike?
Well, you know, like any other kid here in Colorado, my first bike, my mom spent $5 on it. And it was like an old paper bike, you know, and I loved riding that bike. And, you know, I eventually got a paper route, saved up, got more bikes and more bikes and more bikes.
Yep.
And then I started watching bike racing on TV. You know, on Wide World of Sports, they'd show the velodrome and stuff like
Yeah, and the little excerpts on the Tour de France every year. You wait till Saturday to watch it.
Yeah. So I would see that stuff and I said, oh, that's really cool. And, you know, after college, you know, I had always been riding my bicycle. I didn't have a car in college. I always rode my bike. And I just kept riding and riding and riding. And then I got a real expensive bike, which at that time, I know it sounds crazy, but it was $1,200. but that bike was a Sorota, and it had tubular tires and it had Camping Nouveau record. And man, that bike was fast and I kept riding. And there was a couple places here in Denver where one of the parks, Washington Park, had a little, it was not a lap, but just kind of a little course where you kind of go around on the inside and everybody would go to Wash Park. And I started going there and seeing all these guys going at it. And that was when, ironically, when the Red Zinger Classic was going on.
Okay.
and all that stuff. And I would see all the pros, from the 711 team, they'd all be out there training, and
Sure.
I'd be out there trying to hold their wheel. And that's kind of where it all started. And, here I am today, still riding a bike.
Yep. And crazy enough to become a Knight of Sufferlandria, which takes at least 10 to 12 hours to complete on a stationary bike, going nowhere, watching video after video. And one of the worst parts is, in comparison to like riding a 100-mile century or running a marathon, you can go harder, but you don't get done any faster.
No.
So why would, at least if you run faster, the marathon ends sooner, right? So why would you do that, Marcus?
Well, you asking some really great questions. As much as we're so proud of this, and people say, "What is that?" And you kind of have to explain to them 10 out of 10 and stuff like that. But so Neal Henderson, Sir Neal Henderson, who's now the sports science director for Wahoo Fitness, and prior to that, he was at Apex Coaching.
And of course, celebrity interviews with Paul fame is garnered to him as well.
That's right. I was getting to that, but well done. And
okay.
And it's a nice segue. We just kind of pass it back and forth. But with all the cycling that I was doing, and I was doing a lot of nonprofit rides, charity rides and stuff, I ended up meeting Neal. And met Connie and met Davis and met the crew, and they were always doing this Sufferfest stuff, and they said, you need to come up and do some of this. And we'd go up in there in the pain cave and we would do it. And I'm just like, are you kidding me? I mean, those, some of those were like 45 minutes and you think you're in shape.
Right.
No. Yeah. No. And then like, turn the watts up, turn the watts down, till you kind of figure it all out. And then I kind of figured out, this is pretty cool. And then on the Sufferfest website, talked about how to get a knighthood. I asked Neal about it, and he said, come get some. And you know Neal, he's gonna push you. Yep. And I jumped on it with 7 or 8 other coaches and athletes. Yep. And we suffered for that. It was about 12 hours. And it took me places that I'd never been before.
Yep.
And I think as well as I, is that I was scared to death that if I came back from changing my shorts, because everybody's literally in a pool of sweat, at 10 minutes and 1 second, I'd be done. Yeah. So I'm changing, quick. And, I was worried about my nutrition. I actually had a table. I don't know. I'm going to have to send you a picture. I had a table in front of my bike that had all my nutrition in front of it. I had an extension cord to make sure my devices didn't run out. I had a ice chest full of all my water and stuff. And I still got a cramp at number 8. But pushed through it, and I was exhausted, and it was transformative, and was probably one of the best things I'd ever done athletically. And just because of what it does here, you have to, your mind has to be right, and your athleticism has to be to the point that you can go farther, and Neal will sit there and go, come on, and just really trying to get more and more out of you, as he does with all of his world-class athletes. Absolutely. And, it was just a great experience. I'm glad I did it. I wish I had hats that had it across, but we've got the T-shirts, and we have the decal. We have the decal. Absolutely. Absolutely. On all my bikes. Definitely. That's right. That's right.
I wrote it. I did it in the church fellowship hall with 3 other people. We projected the videos on a big screen. We brought guest riders in from the congregation to ride with us, and raised about $8,000 for Habitat for Humanity.
Wow.
Which I was very pleased with. And I am the people that really humble me are the ones that do it by themselves in their basement. Yeah. Because I can't, having the group with me was so huge, made such a big difference. because we could support each other, you know, because
Right.
I have a good ride and you have a bad ride, and we can kind of work, and you have a good ride and I have a bad, you know, we can work together and support each other, that was
Yeah.
huge.
Oh yeah,
So,
for sure.
so you, part of the reason we're talking too then is the Ride for Racial Justice, which started last June. You and Neal
Yeah.
Henderson started that off. Tell me about the Ride for Racial Justice. What's that about?
Well, you know, sometimes you have to make lemons out of what's going on in the world. And, you know, this year has been a challenging one for us here in the US, politically, socially. And with all of the murders of these men here, and watching the outcry and the outcry for social justice and racial justice and those things kind of brought things kind of to the forefront. And I mean, not so much things, but how we are treating each other, you know, here in America and across the world. And there was one moment after George Floyd got killed, and I'm watching, you know, transfixed, you know, on cable television of what's going on and trying to understand it. And I was hurting, you know, my heart was, I was just done. I mean, I still can barely talk about what I saw. And America was just torn. America was just burning, you know, in front of our eyes. And because of what was going on racially and in the way that I was perceiving people treating people like me, you know, cycling is a solitary sport, but sometimes it's a group sport. But where I live, it's pretty much solitary because I ride out in the country a lot. And so it's just me and my bike and the sunshine and the wheat fields. And it's my solace, it's my peace, you know? And that was taken away from me because I got scared. I got scared that somebody was gonna come up and run me off the road, kill me, put me in a ditch, whatever, do harm to me.
Right.
And it hurt because that's a sport I love. And I've done lots of sports as an athlete through college. I've done lots of sports, but this is the one that I had the most freedom. And I didn't ride my bike. You know, in springtime here in Colorado is a great time to ride your bike.
Well, and you've been indoors all winter. You've been dying to get outside and ride that bike.
Exactly. And I just couldn't do it. And I think I posted some stuff on social media or on one of my Instagram shots, and Neal calls me up. And he said, "Bro, what's wrong?" And I prefaced that by saying that the cycling community, for those of us, especially in the Sufferlandria world, we're true brothers, you know, because we have put together an effort. You know, we've suffered together, we have supported one another. You know, we have a bond. And Neal calls me up. He said, "Yo, bro, you okay?" I said, "No, man, I'm not. I can't ride my bike." And he's like, "What? You know, and for him as a coach, he couldn't quite grasp that until we continued to talk. And he said, "We got to do something about that." He said, "Let's go for a ride." And I said, "Okay." He said, "I'll get the people together," meaning all of our posse up in Boulder, which there's a bunch of us. We're going to go ride and we're going to protect you. And I said, "Okay, well, why don't let's do something else. Let's have a ride." You know, like we used to do the old bus stop rides up in Boulder, which everybody would show up at 6 o'clock. You have 150 guys going out and run the stop signs. It was crazy.
Yeah.
And that was back in the 80s. And he said, "No, let's have a ride." And I said, "Okay." So in the span of about 2 weeks, buddy, about 2 weeks, we put together a public service announcement about Ride for Racial Justice. We announced our ride, which was going to be 10 miles so everybody could participate.
Right.
And we started in downtown Denver. And we just rode around for 10 miles and went up Martin Luther King Boulevard and by the statue and all these iconic places in Denver. And we started having conversations where 90% of the riders were there were not like me.
Mm-hmm.
And we started talking about what was going on in the US with the Black Lives Movement, with social justice, with racial justice, on and on and on. We're having conversations. People are starting to think just a little bit. You know, what they may not have thought about, now they're thinking about. Not because it's affecting them, but it's affecting everything around them. Right. They don't have an answer for it. And so the conversations turned great. And then we said, okay, we're gonna turn this to a nonprofit. So like 30 days later, we hire an attorney. We get a nonprofit. We follow all the paperwork for our nonprofit. Then we said, we're gonna go to Boulder. So we go to Boulder and we do another ride. We had maybe 75 people, or maybe 75 to 100 riders in Boulder, same 10 miles, but different area, right?
Sure.
Still having the conversations. And then let's go to Fort Collins. So we went to Fort Collins. We had over 300 people up there.
That's
300
awesome.
people. And then we finished up in Colorado Springs. But at the end of the day, we discovered as an organization that cycling is freedom. And we should not be afraid to ride our bike because of the color of our skin. No one needs to be marginalized. You know, this is a fun sport. It's supposed to be fun.
Right.
And we found out that cycling is pretty much a white sport. And we said, okay, let's do something about that. So, and I noticed in you know, Bicycling Magazine, bless their heart, they finally put some people of color on their magazine after, you know, 30 years, which is kind of crazy.
Sure.
But we decided that that people of color have funding just like everyone else. We have the ability to have fun. We have spendable dollars. And we decided to start changing the whole dynamic about cycling as it affects people of color. So we're starting talking to corporations, we're talking to other nonprofits, we're talking to community leaders. And our goal is having more people of color in cycling at the community level, at the amateur level, at the pro level. But here's the great thing though. If you don't want to be a great cyclist, you can be a great human. You can do stuff in the community. You can become that next lawyer, that doctor, that astronaut that just flew up last night on SpaceX. That's what you can do. And so we're really building this community. We're really excited about it.
You could maybe be vice president too.
Could be vice president. I forgot about that. Yeah. So that's kind of what we're all doing. And, you know, now I'm gonna have to send you one of these.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, awesome. you gotta have one of those, and
absolutely
gonna have the kit, and
yep.
You know, it's fun, it's hard, but you know the conversations are necessary. And what we're getting back from the community is amazing, and you're gonna see a lot of things coming from our organization in 21. So
that's awesome. Excellent. Well, I look forward to that. You know, and it becomes about relationships, right? And it's about crossing those lines and telling stories and helping people who are outside of the community hear those stories and acknowledge the humanity in all of us. And it's people in positions of privilege like me acknowledging the reality of my privilege, and hearing the stories and realizing that I can have a role in giving other people and helping other people with that too. And even doing something as simple as going on a 10-mile bike ride can help contribute to those things.
Oh, you're definitely right. And, you know, one of the things that I found is that people were coming up to me, you know, because I wouldn't be riding at the front. I was going back and forth through the group, just chatting everybody up. And this one lady, she goes, I am that woman of privilege. And I said, okay.
Yeah.
And she says, but I want to help. She said, I realized that things were given to me and I had no understanding of it. It was just the way things worked. And I said, great, this is what we can do together. And she's like, I'm on board. So that was not an apology. That was none of that stuff that people are asking for in these other organizations. It's like, this is not an apology tour. This is where we can move forward. I will not fault anyone for their success in life. Can't do it.
Yeah. At the same time, like her, like the woman you described, it's eye-opening and reminding and refreshing that I need to acknowledge reality that, a lot of the stuff I got just because of the color of my skin, because of who my parents are, because of the places that I grew up and the opportunities afforded to me. I look at, like, I grew up as a runner, and you'd look at all the great Kenyan runners, and you think I think, like, well, marathon running and cycling, there's got to be some physiological things that are similar in that.
It is.
And why is it that the Tour de France greats are all European, or all Caucasian? Well, not all, but a lot of, and where's the great African rider? And although I wonder, then you get into economic issues too. Cycling is, running, some shoes, a kit, an old sweatshirt, you can go out and run.
Right.
You can't just can't go down to the Habitat for Humanity resale store and pick up a beater bike and win a race.
No, you can't. And that's really a great observation, is that cycling is inherently for the rich. There are not many parents.
Well, not even like individually rich, but nationally, because if you're going to be a road cyclist, you need good road.
Yes.
So, like, if you live in a country that doesn't have a lot of good roads or reasonably safe roads to ride on, you can't train. Exactly.
And what we're finding through this process, and that was one of the parts on our mission, is we need to make it accessible. Another way to make it accessible is not every kid needs a $10,000 bicycle, right?
Yep.
I happen to have one. So, but is that realistic? No. Can you win a race with a kid that's got good genetics? He's just a good athlete, and you give him something that costs $500, in this year's, financial world.
Right.
What can he do? And, the cycling brands need to understand that not everyone needs that. Right? You need to make, if you really want to get into the community and do the things that you've said that you wanted to do, right? Then make the price of getting into entry-level bike racing or riding or whatever, make it affordable, so a parent is not, foregoing, steak on Sunday, in order to buy his child a bicycle. That's just not right.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's certainly a challenge for us all. So your mission statement is, you want to ensure access to resources, education, and community for Black, Indigenous, and people of color cyclists to dismantle systemic racism so everyone can feel safe, free, and empowered to ride a bicycle.
That's right.
That's where we're going. That's a beautiful vision. And
thank you.
I appreciate, to whatever degree I can be a part of that vision, as it moves forward and into the world. And thank you so much for your time, Marcus, and for your vision, for your passion, for your heart. And when Neal called, thank you for actually being honest. I think a lot of times you're like, yeah, it's okay, it's not so bad, don't worry about it. But you spoke from the heart, and that ultimately is what made a difference and going to make a difference. So thank you for that.
No, thank you, buddy.
Well, I have one. I always ask, my final question to everybody is always the same. What brings you joy?
What brings me joy? I'm going to make this really simple. Actually, it was Saturday, this past Saturday.
Okay.
So I have a birthday this week.
Yep.
And with the pandemic, obviously, we can't have a party. And it's a very significant birthday.
Okay.
Cycling keeps you young, so I'm not going to tell you how old I am, but cycling keeps you young and fit.
Yep.
But so my other side gig is I love barbecue and cooking, right?
Okay.
So I'll go out to my barbecue pit and I'll smoke meat for 18 hours. And I just love that. And I make barbecue sauce and all that stuff. And then I like cooking. And I like trying to cook the most bizarre thing I can possibly get. And so Saturday, my wife says, hey, we're going out and we're going to have breakfast because that's all we can do.
Right.
I said, all right. So she's rushing me along. Then my best buddy who I barbecue with, he calls me, but she had texted him to call me. And I'm like,
sneaking
man,
around behind your back.
Yeah. And next thing you know, the doorbell rings. I go outside and I hear, yo, man, what are you doing here? He says, happy birthday. So in comes my best buddy. And then in comes a chef who's a friend of ours. He walks in his chef coat and all of his food, comes in. We do a family meal. He's teaching us all these things on how to cook and do this and that. That's what gives me joy. And seeing my wife, Sandra, smiling.
Yep.
That's it.
Nothing better in the world.
That and my mother's love. And that's pretty much it.
That sums it up. Well, thank you, Sir Marcus, for your time. Thank you for being part of Celebrity Interviews with Paul. And you can learn more about Ride for Racial Justice in the link below in the description of the interview. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks, Paul. Take care, buddy.